respected Chancellor, Vice Chancellor Dr. Achal Gulati sir, Pro Vice Chancellor Dr. V.K. Kapoor sir, Principal Dr. N.D. Soni sir, senior faculty members and all the dear students. On the behalf of Organizing Committee of the UGCR, I welcome you all to the 4th UGCR. The topic for the 4th UGCR is jaundice, which will be dealt with in two parts. Part 1 will deal with anatomy, physiology, biochemistry and pathology, and part 2 will deal with medicine, radiology, surgery and pediatrics. Now I would like to request the first student to come up on the stage and start the presentation.
Teachers and my fellow colleagues, I, Anushka Sharma, 2nd MBBS 2021, is here on behalf of Department of Anatomy to present Anatomy of Hepatobiliary System. This presentation is prepared by my colleagues Ashita Goyal, Anamika Kumari, Nisha, Sakshi Thera and myself Anushka Sharma, under the guidance of Dr. Jagmohan Sir, Professor and Head Department of Anatomy, and Dr. Runjan Vijayvargiya, Assistant Professor Anatomy. Coming on to the anatomy of hepatobiliary system, which consists of liver, right hepatic duct, left hepatic duct, common hepatic duct, gallbladder, cystic duct, and common bile duct. Coming on to the development of hepatobiliary system, which starts with during the 3rd week of intrauterine life. Figure A is showing the formation of hepatic bud in the ventral wall of terminal part of the foregut. Figure B is showing the further development of hepatic bud into the cranial part, pars hepatica, and the caudal part, pars cystica. Figure C is showing pars hepatica growing towards septum transversum through ventral mesogastrium. Figure D is showing further development of right and left branches of pars hepatica, which forms the right and left hepatic ducts. And the caudal part, pars cystica, develops into gallbladder. Figure E is showing the formation of hepatic trabecle and formation of sheets of hepatic cells. Coming on to the gross anatomy of liver. As we all know, liver is the largest visceral organ and it is situated in the right hypochondrium, epigastric region, and it slightly extends towards the left hypochondrium. It is reddish brown in color and wedge shaped. Its weight varies from 1.2 to 1.8 kg, and the main function of liver is to produce bile. Such a huge amount of weight of liver, 1.2 to 1.8 kg, is supported by many structures, but the main structure supporting the weight of liver is inferior vena cava. The secondary support is provided by ligaments of liver, which are formed from condensation of the peritoneum. Example, falciform ligament, coronary ligament, and triangular ligaments. This is the cadaveric image showing the position of liver and falciform ligament on the diaphragmatic surface and coronary ligament. External features. Liver has 5 surfaces and 1 sharp demarcating inferior border. 5 surfaces are superior surface, anterior surface, right lateral surface, posterior surface, and the inferior surface. Diaphragmatic surface of liver is covered by peritoneum except at bare areas of liver, which is one of the important site of portocaval anastomosis. Lobes and segments. On anatomical basis, liver is divided into 2 lobes on the diaphragmatic surface and 4 lobes on the visceral surface. On diaphragmatic surface, falciform ligament divides liver into left lobe and right lobe. On the visceral surface, 4 lobes are right lobe, caudate lobe, left lobe, and quadrate lobe. Cunard's classification. Cunard classified liver into 8 structural units, 8 hepatic segments, Right physiological lobe is divided into anterior and posterior, left into medial and lateral, and further these are divided into upper and lower parts. Hence, 8 surgically resectable hepatic segments are formed. It allows the surgical resection of the individual segments without damaging the remaining other segments. Blood supply. Liver receives 80% of its blood supply through portal vein and 20% through hepatic artery. Venous drainage. Hepatic sinusoids join to form interlobular veins, which further drains into sublobular veins, and they further drains into hepatic veins and finally into the inferior vena cava. The superficial lymphatics of liver terminates in the caval, hepatic, pericardial and the celiac lymph nodes. Liver receives its nerve supply through hepatic plexus, and which contains both sympathetic and parasympathetic fibers. Coming on to the common bile duct, which is formed near the porta hepatix by union of cystic duct and common hepatic duct, and it opens into the second part of duodenum. It is 7.5 cm into the length and 6 mm in diameter. It has 4 parts: supraduodenal part, retroduodenal part, infraduodenal part and intraduodenal part. This is cadaveric image showing the formation of bile duct by union of cystic duct and common hepatic duct. Arterial supply. The upper part of bile duct is supplied by cystic artery and lower part is supplied from a branch of superior pancreaticoduodenal artery. Gallbladder. It is an elongated pear-shaped sac located in the gallbladder fossa in the inferior surface of right lobe of liver on the right edge of quadrate lobe. It has length 10 cm, width 3 cm and a capacity of 30 to 50 ml. The main function of gallbladder is to store and concentrate the bile and discharge it into the duodenum by its muscular contraction, and this action is under the influence of 2 hormones, secretin and cholecystokinin. Cadaveric image showing the location of gallbladder in the gallbladder fossa. Gallbladder has 3 parts: neck, body and fundus. Neck is related inferiorly to the first part of duodenum, and in some cases at the junction of gallbladder and cystic duct there is a mucosal outpouching of gallbladder wall. This structure is known as Hartmann's pouch. Body lies medial to the fundus and its upper surface is directly related to the liver and second part to and undersurface to the second part of duodenum. Fundus projects from the inferior border of liver and it is anteriorly related to the anterior abdominal wall and its structures and posteriorly to the transverse colon. Arterial supply. Gallbladder is supplied by cystic artery, which is a branch of right hepatic artery, and it lies behind the bile duct. Venous drainage. Superior surface of gallbladder is drained by number of small veins which enter liver into the hepatic vein. Rest of the gallbladder is drained by cystic vein and finally which drains into the portal vein. Lymphatic drainage. Cystic node and node along the side of bile duct is drains into the celiac group of lymph nodes. And nerve supply of gallbladder. Sympathetic fibers arises from cystic plexus, parasympathetic from vagus nerve and sensory from the right phrenic nerve. Coming on to some congenital anomalies associated with jaundice of hepatobiliary system. First is Feigen gap. It is a gallbladder with fundus folded on itself to form a cap-like structure. Second is Hartmann's pouch, which is an outpouching of the mucosa of neck of gallbladder, and it is a common site of gallbladder impaction, and if this condition is not treated, it can perforate the first part of duodenum. Atresia of ducts. Ducts of extrahepatic biliary apparatus such as bile duct, common hepatic duct and hepatic ducts may be partially or completely absent. Figure A, here is cystic duct is missing. In figure B, hepatic duct is missing, and in figure C, the complete bile duct is missing. Choledochal cyst, it is a congenital anomaly involving the cystic dilation of the bile duct, which usually leads to the obstruction of bile duct and retention of bile. Here are some references. Now I would like to call upon Divyanshi from Department of Physiology.
Good afternoon, dignitaries, esteemed faculty members, and my fellow colleagues. Today, under the expert guidance of Dr. Aparna Garg ma'am, Professor and Head Department of Physiology, under the excellent moderatorship of Dr. Shikha Mathur ma'am and Dr. Divya Joshi ma'am, alongside Parth Soni, Manan Kiroriwal, Mokshi Ramlakhiani, Ananya, I, Divyanshi Singh, would like to present on the topic Physiology of Bilirubin Metabolism. Before we get on straight to bilirubin metabolism, it is essential for us to understand what exactly is bilirubin. Now, bile, produced in the liver and stored in the gallbladder, consists of many bile acids, bile pigments, one of them being bilirubin. In other words, bilirubin can be defined as the water-insoluble breakdown product of normal heme catabolism. It has a greenish-yellow color to it and is excreted out of the body via urine, bile, and feces. Serum bilirubin level is an important clinical marker of biliary excretory function. The different fractions of bilirubin present in our body include delta bilirubin, which is unconjugated bilirubin bound to albumin, bilirubin diglucuronide, which is conjugated bilirubin, bilirubin monoglucuronide, and unconjugated bilirubin. Coming on to bilirubin metabolism, it can be divided into 4 steps, starting from its formation, its transport in the plasma, a hepatic phase consisting of hepatic uptake, conjugation, and biliary excretion. Finally, we have its excretion through the intestine. Formation of bilirubin. Species in the bloodstream have a lifespan of about 120 days, after completion of which they enter the reticuloendothelial system to undergo extravascular apoptosis. After the breakdown of RBCs, hemoglobin is released, which is further broken down into globin and heme. Globin enters the protein pool in the plasma to be reutilized, whereas heme, due to the action of heme oxygenase enzyme, splits into free iron and bile pigments. Free iron is transported in the blood by transferrin and it is stored as a reservoir for erythropoiesis, whereas bile pigments, first of which is biliverdin, due to the action of biliverdin reductase, is converted to free bilirubin in the plasma. Step 2. Transport of bilirubin in plasma. Now, the bilirubin which was formed in the spleen was unconjugated bilirubin, hence it is hydrophobic in nature. So, for its transport, it immediately combines with plasma proteins such as albumin and globulin to form a hydrophilic complex, and then it is transported to hepatocytes for further metabolism and conjugation process. Step 3. A hepatic phase. Conjugated bilirubin on entry to hepatocytes is converted to conjugated bilirubin due to the action of UDP, glucuronyl transferase enzyme, that is, the attachment of glucuronic acid to unconjugated bilirubin converts it to conjugated bilirubin. Conjugated bilirubin enters the large intestine to be converted to urobilinogen due to the action of gut bacteria. Fate of urobilinogen. About 80% of urobilinogen is converted in the large intestine into stercobilinogen and is excreted out of the body with the feces, giving it a dark brown appearance. About 15% of the urobilinogen enters the enterohepatic circulation, while about 5% of urobilinogen is converted to urobilin and is excreted out of the body with the urine, giving it a yellow color. The different types of bilirubin present in the serum are direct bilirubin, also known as conjugated bilirubin, and indirect bilirubin, also known as unconjugated bilirubin. Now, direct bilirubin, which is water soluble, reacts rapidly with reagents, whereas indirect bilirubin, which is water insoluble, reacts slowly with reagents. Now, it was essential for us to classify bilirubin into 2 types because the normal range of bilirubin in our body is a summation of both direct as well as indirect bilirubin. The normal range is 0.1 to 1 mg per deciliter. Even a slight increase in these values can be a cause of hyperbilirubinemia, that is from 1 to 2 mg per deciliter. However, greater than 2 mg per deciliter, it can be a cause of jaundice. The different disorders of bilirubin. Increase in concentration of unconjugated bilirubin in the body, the following can be its causes: increased RBC turnover, as in the case of hemolytic anemias; physiologic, as in newborn babies; hereditary, as in Gilbert and Crigler-Najjar syndromes, which would be further elaborated by the pathology department. In case of increase in the conjugated bilirubin concentration, following can be its causes: biliary tract obstruction, biliary tract diseases, hereditary, Dubin-Johnson and Rotor syndromes, and liver disease such as cirrhosis and hepatitis. A quick introduction to both physiological and pathological jaundice. Physiological jaundice, which is also known as icterus neonatorum, is usually transient and occurs during the first week of life in neonates. Whereas pathological jaundice can be categorized into three types: prehepatic, hepatic, and posthepatic. Neonatal jaundice. Now, most newborns have some yellowish discoloration of skin, sclera, and mucous membranes, which is known as physiological jaundice, the causes for which might be excessive hemolysis and incomplete development of liver and spleen. A quick summary. RBCs, upon completion of their lifespan of 120 days, enter the reticuloendothelial system to be broken down after giving hemoglobin, which further breaks down to give unconjugated bilirubin, which enters the hepatocytes to give conjugated bilirubin, and further is converted to urobilinogen, stercobilin, and urobilin. I would now like to call upon stage Manaswini Sharma to present from the biochemistry department.
Good afternoon, esteemed dignitaries, respected faculty members, and my fellow colleagues. Today, I am Manaswini Sharma, along with my group members Nandini Gehlot, Nidhi Rathod, Nikhil Badesra, and Saksha Modi. I am here to present on the topic Structure and Composition of the Bile Salts and Gallstones and Liver Function Test. Biochemical composition of the bile. The bile consists of 97.6% water, in which a number of endogenous solid constituents including organic and inorganic substances are dissolved. The organic substances are bile salts, bile pigments, cholesterol, fatty acids, lecithin, and mucin, whereas the inorganic substances includes sodium, calcium, potassium, chloride, and bicarbonate. Biochemical synthesis of the bile acids and salts. The bile acids and salts are formed from the cholesterol, in which the cholesterol is converted into the primary bile acids, that are cholyl coenzyme A and chenodeoxycholyl coenzyme A. Then these primary bile acids are converted into the bile salts by the conjugation with taurine and glycine, and are converted into taurocholate and glycocholate by cholyl coenzyme A, and taurochenodeoxycholate and glycocenodeoxycholate from chenodeoxycholyl coenzyme A. Then these bile salts pass into the small intestine and gets deconjugated by the intestinal bacteria and gets converted into secondary bile acids, that are deoxycholate and lithocolate. Jaundice and gallstones. Jaundice occurs when the serum bilirubin levels exceed 2 mg per deciliter. This causes yellowish discoloration of the skin and sclera. Gallstones are the most common cause of the posthepatic or obstructive jaundice. Biochemistry of the gallstones. There are three types of gallstones based on their biochemical composition. They are cholesterol stones, pigment stones, and mixed stones. The cholesterol stones are the most common stones in the commonly occurring stones in the Asians. The cholesterol stones contains 51 to 99% of the cholesterol plus a mixture of calcium salts, bile acids, less than 30% of the cholesterol, pigment stones and black pigment stones. 60 to 70% of the cases and includes calcium bilirubinate, calcium palmitate, and calcium stearate, whereas the black pigment stones occurs in 20 to 30% of the cases and it includes insoluble bilirubin pigment polymer, calcium phosphate, and calcium bicarbonate. And the mixed stones contains a biochemical mixture of the cholesterol stones and pigment stones. Etiology of the cholesterol stones. The cholesterol stones are formed by the supersaturation of the bile by the various factors such as age, sex, genetics, obesity, and diet. This is caused due to the impaired gallbladder function such as delaying emptying, absorption, and excretion. Supersaturation of the bile also promotes some cholesterol nucleating factors that are mucus, glycoprotein, and infection. Other factors such as deoxycholate, bowel transit time, fecal enteric flora, ileal resection, and cholestyramine hampers the absorption or enterohepatic circulation of the bile acids. Etiology of the pigment stones. The brown pigment stones can occur due to bile stasis, infected bile, common bile duct foreign bodies, stents, and parasites such as Clonorchis sinensis and Ascaris lumbricoides. The black pigment stones are associated with increased age, hemolytic disorders, hereditary spherocytosis, sickle cell disease, and liver cirrhosis. Formation of the cholesterol stones. When the cholesterol concentration exceeds the solubilizing capacity of the bile, then the cholesterol stones are formed. The cholesterol supersaturation occurs as follows. First, the unilamellar vesicles are converted to multilamellar vesicles. Then these multilamellar vesicles are converted to the biliary sludge, that is cholesterol monohydrate crystals, which is promoted by the mucin and the calcium, whereas inhibited by apolipoprotein and lecithin. Then the biliary sludge is converted into microlithiasis, which is the microstone, and hence the gallstone is formed. Liver function test. These include the laboratory tests used for the assessment of the various liver functions, such as synthetic function, synthesis of the plasma proteins, cholesterol, triacylglycerols, and lipoproteins. Metabolic function, metabolism of carbohydrate, protein, lipid, and ketones. Excretory function, excretion of ammonia, urine, bilirubin, bile acids, bile salts, and xenobiotics. And storage function, that is storage of fat soluble vitamin A, D, E, and K. Liver function test can be grouped into the 5 categories. The first category is biomarkers of the liver dysfunction. Its test parameters includes total bilirubin, direct bilirubin, indirect bilirubin, urinary bile pigments and salts, total protein, albumin, globulin, its ratio, prothrombin time, and ammonia. Its significance is bile pigments and bile salts indicates excretory functions of the liver. The Vandenberg reaction is used for differentiating between direct and indirect bilirubin. The measurement of different types of protein levels helps in the assessment of the synthetic functions of liver, and the ammonia levels indicate the extent of the protein catabolism and is significant in the case of hepatic encephalopathy. The second category is biomarkers of hepatocellular injury. The parameters include aspartate transaminase and alanine transaminase. These both are the intracellular enzymes present in the hepatocytes. Their increased levels indicates the hepatocellular damage. The next category is biomarkers of cholestasis. The parameters include alkaline phosphatase and gamma-glutamyl transferase. The alkaline phosphatase causes dephosphorylation, whereas gamma-glutamyl transferase causes transfer of glutamyl group to a variety of substrates. In case of cholestasis and biliary obstruction, these enzymes spill over into the. The next category is biomarkers of hepatic fibrosis. The parameters are serum hyaluronic acid, matrix metalloproteinase, tissue inhibitors of matrix metalloproteinase, procollagen type 1 carboxy terminal peptide, and procollagen type 3 amino terminal peptide. The significance is high hyaluronic acid is a cement that binds cells in the extracellular matrix and is necessary for the maintenance of the cellular architecture. Matrix metalloproteinase degrade the extracellular matrix and are highly expressed during the fibrosis. And the procollagen peptides are the breakdown of the products of extracellular matrix. The last category is special biomarkers. These parameters are ceruloplasmin, ferritin, iron, alpha-1 antitrypsin, and alpha-fetoprotein. The significance is ceruloplasmin is a copper transporting protein clinically relevant in the Wilson's disease and Menkes disease. Iron and ferritin have biological significance in the anemia, inflammation, and hemochromatosis. Alpha-1 antitrypsin is a lung alveoli protective enzyme implicated in the emphysema, and the alpha-fetoprotein is a commonly used tumor marker. Now, there are some commonly used liver function tests for investigating the jaundice. Here are their test parameters and reference ranges. The total bilirubin is 0.2 to 1.2 mg per deciliter. conjugated bilirubin or direct bilirubin is less than 0.3 milligram per deciliter. Unconjugated bilirubin or indirect bilirubin 0.1 to 0.9 per liter. Acetate transaminase 15 to 46 units per liter. Alanine transaminase 13 to 69 units per liter. Alkaline phosphatase 38 to 126 units per liter. Gamma glutamyl transferase 15 to 73 units per liter. Total protein 6.3 to 8.2 gram per deciliter. Albumin 3.5 to 5 gram per deciliter. Globulin 2 to 3.5 gram per deciliter. Ag ratio is 1.2 to 2.5:1 and ammonia is 9 to 30 micromole per liter. These are some references. Now I would like to hand over the mic to the pathology department.
Good afternoon to all the dignitaries, faculty members and my fellow companions. I would like to extend a very warm welcome on behalf of the Department of Pathology. My team members Diya Sihag, Gargi Mathur, Janvi Mehlawat, Krishita Kharia and myself Lakshata Rathore of second year MBBS 2021 batch would like to present the topic Etiology and Pathogenesis of Jaundice under the guidance of Dr. Manju Raghav ma'am, Professor and Head of Department Pathology, and Dr. Chetna Mehrol ma'am, Associate Professor Pathology. So jaundice, also referred to as icterus, is the yellowish discoloration of the skin or sclera when the serum bilirubin level is more than or equal to 2 milligrams per deciliter, whereas the normal serum bilirubin concentration would range from 0.3 to 1.2 milligrams per deciliter. Now, bilirubin has a particularly increased affinity for elastin fibers, so the skin, sclera and mucous membrane are often examined for the detection of jaundice. Moving on to the etiology of jaundice. Jaundice can occur due to bilirubin overproduction or hepatitis or obstruction of bile flow. All of these would ultimately lead to the disturbance of equilibrium between bilirubin production and clearance. This would lead to a rise in serum bilirubin level above 2 milligrams per deciliter. Now, this can be conjugated bilirubin, unconjugated bilirubin, or both. Now, as my fellow colleague already elaborated about the enzyme UDP glucuronyl transferase, which is responsible for the conjugation of bilirubin, and the transport protein multi-drug resistant associated protein, which is responsible for the excretion of bilirubin into the bile. Now, the classification of jaundice. So, based on pathophysiology, jaundice may result from one or more of the following mechanisms. First mechanism is the increased bilirubin production. Second is the decreased hepatic uptake of the bilirubin. Then third is the decreased hepatic conjugation, and fourth mechanism is the decreased excretion of the bilirubin into bile. So in the first three mechanisms, there is a defect in the conjugation of bilirubin or before the conjugation of bilirubin. So all of the three mechanisms would lead to mainly unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia, and the last variety where there is decreased excretion of the conjugated bilirubin into the bile would lead to conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. Now, the etiological classification of jaundice is based on the fact that the increase in serum bilirubin level is of predominantly unconjugated type. So it can be divided into predominantly unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia and predominantly conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. However, there was a simple age-old classification which divided jaundice into pre-hepatic, hepatic and post-hepatic jaundice. Now we'll discuss about the mechanisms for predominantly unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia. The first mechanism is increased bilirubin production. So in conditions like extravascular hemolytic anemia and ineffective erythropoiesis, for example, in case of pernicious anemia and thalassemia, there is excessive hemolysis. So it leads to excessive bilirubin production, and since the hepatic enzymes responsible for conjugation are rate limiting, so too much unconjugated bilirubin would overwhelm the liver. And since the liver is working at its maximum capacity for the conjugation of bilirubin, it would lead to increased urobilinogen production. As a result, it would lead to dark urine. Another mechanism for predominantly unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia is decreased hepatic uptake, which can be due to drugs like rifampicin, prolonged starvation, or sepsis. Decreased bilirubin conjugation will be due to hereditary disorders, acquired defects due to drugs, hepatitis, cirrhosis, and neonatal jaundice. So the hereditary disorders leading to decreased bilirubin conjugation are Crigler-Najjar syndrome type 1, type 2, and Gilbert syndrome. Crigler-Najjar syndrome type 1 is autosomal dominant. There is complete deficiency or absence of UDP glucuronil transferase enzyme. So there is no conjugation of bilirubin, and it is a completely fatal syndrome, and the prognosis is poor. Whereas in Crigler-Najjar syndrome type 2, which is autosomal recessive, there is partial deficiency of UDP glucuronil transferase enzyme. So it is not fatal, and the prognosis is good. In Gilbert syndrome, there is a mild defect in UDP glucuronil transferase enzyme. So these patients are asymptomatic, but the jaundice becomes evident during conditions of stress, for example, in infection, starvation, physical exercise, or dehydration. And the prognosis is excellent in Gilbert syndrome. Moving on to the mechanisms for predominantly conjugated hyperbilirubinemia, which can be due to cholestasis. Cholestasis is the impaired outflow of bile. It can be intrahepatic cholestasis or extrahepatic cholestasis. Now, intrahepatic cholestasis is due to impaired hepatic excretion of bile. It may be due to hereditary disorders, which is due to Dubin-Johnson syndrome and Rotor syndrome, and due to acquired disorders in case of viral hepatitis, drugs, alcohol-induced injury, and cirrhosis. Now, the hereditary disorders for conjugated hyperbilirubinemia are Dubin-Johnson syndrome and Rotor syndrome. In Dubin-Johnson syndrome, it is due to low bile canalicular transport protein, MRP2. Now, MRP2 transports the bilirubin from the hepatocytes into the bile canaliculi. So, in this syndrome, there is a deficiency of MRP2. So, it would lead to upregulation of another transport protein, which is MRP3. Now, it differs from MRP2 in the fact that it transports the bilirubin from the hepatocytes into the interstitial spaces which reaches the blood vessels. So, there is conjugated hyperbilirubinemia in the blood vessels, which is filtered by the kidneys and leads to dark urine. And pigmentation of liver is seen in Dubin-Johnson syndrome. Whereas in Rotor syndrome, there is a defect in ATP transport protein and there is non-pigmented liver. Now we can see the microscopic image of cholestasis, where there is yellowish green accumulation of the pigments, which are bile. And in Dubin-Johnson syndrome, in the liver pathology, we can see the pigmented cytoplasmic globules. Now moving on to extrahepatic cholestasis, which may be due to mechanical obstruction to large bile ducts which are outside the liver or within the porta hepatis. The causes are gallstones, inflammatory strictures, carcinoma head of pancreas, tumors of bile duct, or sclerosing cholangitis. Now in obstructive jaundice, there is an obstruction in the common bile duct which can be due to gallstones, pancreatic cholangiocarcinoma, or even parasites like liver fluke that end up in the common bile duct obstructing it. So there is an increased pressure in the bile canaliculi. So the bile leaks through the tight junctions between the hepatocytes lining the bile canaliculi and enters into the interstitial spaces, ultimately reaching the blood vessels. This would lead to conjugated hyperbilirubinemia and dark urine. But since the bile is entering the blood vessels and it has two more principal components, which are bile acids and salts and cholesterol, so they would lead to manifestations of their own. For example, bile salts would lead to pruritus, that is itchy skin, and cholesterol would lead to hypercholesterolemia, xanthomas. And since the body is losing bile, so there is impaired fat absorption, leading to increased fat excretion, which is steatorrhea, and decreased absorption of fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, K. Moving on to the diagnostic investigations, it would include a thorough history taking and physical examinations where we look for risk factors for hepatitis, whether the patient has a history of unhygienic food consumption, a history of blood transfusion, unprotected sex, or needle sharing. For cancer, by age, family history, and smoking, and whether the jaundice is painful or painless. Lab investigations include a complete blood count, liver function test, a bilirubin fractionation. Now in the laboratory diagnosis, if there is isolated elevation of bilirubin while the other tests, for example AST, ALT and ALP levels are normal, then we will look whether it is a direct hyperbilirubinemia or conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. It would indicate hepatitis and cholestatic causes, Dubin-Johnson and Rotor syndrome as we discussed earlier. If there is indirect hyperbilirubinemia, it would indicate hemolytic disorders, Gilbert syndrome and Crigler-Najjar syndrome. Whereas in the second scenario, if bilirubin as well as the other liver tests are elevated, it would indicate if there is increase in AST, aspartate aminotransferase, and ALT, which stands for alanine aminotransferase level, it would indicate a hepatocellular pattern. Whereas if there is rise in AST, ALT, but the rise in alkaline phosphatase is significant, it would indicate a cholestatic pattern of injury. Now, other investigations would include the ultrasound of abdomen, CT scan, MRCP, endoscopic ultrasound. Liver biopsy would be particularly useful in case of Dubin-Johnson syndrome, where the liver core biopsies would show dark regions corresponding to the pigment within the centrizonal hepatocytes. Now we'll discuss about the major differences in a different type of jaundice. In hemolytic jaundice, the age group affected is usually young. In hepatic jaundice, it is usually young age group that's affected, and in obstructive jaundice, middle age and beyond are affected. Now, hemolytic jaundice patient would present with a previous history of attacks of abdominal colic. Hepatic jaundice patient would present with a previous exposure to hepatotoxic drugs, and obstructive jaundice will present with obstruction at ampulla or biliary atresia. Rate of development of hemolytic jaundice is slow, hepatic is rapid, and post-hepatic is mild. Pain is common in hemolytic jaundice, whereas it is absent in hepatic and post-hepatic. Splenomegaly would be seen in prehepatic jaundice, and it is transient in liver cell jaundice, and spleen is not palpable in obstructive jaundice. Gallbladder may be palpable in prehepatic jaundice, not palpable in hepatic jaundice, and it may be palpable due to a neoplasm in obstructive jaundice. Tenderness of liver is rare except in acute cholecystitis. In case of hemolytic jaundice, it is often seen in hepatic, and it is not seen in post-hepatic. Urine bilirubin is absent in prehepatic, normal or increased in hepatic, and present or increased in obstructive. Type of bilirubin is indirect or unconjugated in hemolytic jaundice. It is both in liver cell obstructive jaundice. Urobilinogen is present in the urine, leading to a cocoa-colored urine in hemolytic jaundice and hepatic jaundice. Stercobilinogen is normal in hemolytic jaundice and hepatic jaundice as well, whereas it is decreased, leading to pale stones in obstructive jaundice. Now summarizing the diagnostic investigation. When a patient presents with jaundice, after history taking and physical examination, we will go for 3 principal tests, which is liver function test, liver ultrasound, and urine for bilirubin. Now in the first case, if the LFTs are normal and the ultrasound is normal, it indicates that there is no obstruction in the post-hepatic biliary system, and the urine is negative for bilirubin, which indicates that it is unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia. So we will look for elevated unconjugated bilirubin and then go for a blood smear or reticulocyte count to rule out hemolysis. If it is positive, then it indicates jaundice due to hemolysis, and we will go for a hemolysis workup. Whereas if it is negative, then it indicates Gilbert syndrome. If there is elevated conjugated bilirubin, it indicates Dubin-Johnson and Rotor syndrome. Now in the second case, if the LFTs are abnormal, where AST and ALT would rise out of proportion to ALP, and there is raised conjugated bilirubin, the ultrasound is normal, which indicates that there is no obstruction in the posthepatic biliary tree, and the urine is positive for bilirubin, so it is conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. A probable diagnosis of hepatocellular jaundice can be made in this case. Whereas if the LFTs are abnormal, where ALP rises out of proportion to AST and ALT, and the ultrasound is abnormal, so it indicates an evidence of biliary disease, and the urine is positive for bilirubin. So probable diagnosis of obstructive jaundice can be made, and we can further go for cholangiography, ERCP or MRCP to find out the site of obstruction. Thank you.